everybody? What's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. I am your tour guide around the swag Seawells, coming at you, and we are gonna recap week 12. Man, what a crazy week of swag action. But the divisional races are all taken care of now. We know who the swag championship game is gonna be between, and so that is gone from the rest of the season. So there is no more need for a show to deep dive into the standings. So last week was my last one. Congratulations to Jackson State for winning the East. Congratulations to Southern for winning the West. And also shout out to Valley, man. Who would have thought that on a day that both division races would be wrapped up, that Valley would be the big story of the day. So salute to the Delta Devils, and we're gonna talk about that game as we get into the show. But as usual, we have our week 13 pick'em. The link is up now. It's on my Twitter account as a pinned tweet, and that's Swag Talk 76. It's also on my Facebook and Instagram, which are both Swag Talk. So and it's also gonna be in the description below on this video. So if you want to get in on it and make your picks for the last basically last full weekend of the regular season. Next week has 5 games. And then there's like 3 games the following week, and then the SWAC championship game, then a celebration bowl. So there's 10 football games left in this season, man. That's regular season and postseason. So there's not a lot of football left. So you need to enjoy these last couple weeks because they're moving by rapidly. And we once the pads go up, then we have to wait till the spring. Of course, there's recruiting and everything, but we won't have much football after that, and then it's basketball, which I definitely cover basketball if that's your thing. If that's your thing, you new here. I definitely cover basketball all season long, so definitely keep it locked here. And we also cover the Legacy Bowl and any other stuff that come up in the off season. So, but before all of that, man, let's go ahead and make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, and hit the notification bell because you can get alerted to videos that we drop, like the one we did last night, our post-game edition of Swag Smoke. So if you want to catch that on Saturdays, hit that notification bell to be alerted when it drop. Also, drop videos here and now off of my normal Wednesday, Sunday schedule. So definitely hit that notification bell so you'll be alerted to when those videos drop. They don't catch you by surprise. So let's go ahead and get into the action, man. We're gonna start off with the Thursday night game that we had, and this was Grambling and Alabama A&M, and this game honestly was a tale of 2 halves. Grambling jumped out to a 17-6 first half lead, and A&M was able to score to outscore Grambling 16-0 in the second half and pull out the victory. So this was a game that looked like Grambling was going to be able to kind of cruise to a victory, but everything that went well for them in the first half didn't go well for them in the second half, and it was vice versa for A&M. Everything went wrong in the first half, and things went right in the second. Looking at the scoring summary, Grambling scored first when Reed Harradine kicked a 23-yard field goal with 8:31 left in the first quarter, put Grambling up 3-0, and then would answer with 2:12 left in the first when Victor Barbosa would kick a 45-yard field goal to tie the game up at 3. With 12:06 left in the second quarter, Andrew Jones had a 30-yard fumble recovery, scoop and score for Grambling, extra point good, 10-3 at that point. And then Grambling would tack on another touchdown with 7:24 left in the second quarter when J.R. Waters would catch a 10-yard pass from Miles Crawley. Tigers led 17-3 at that point. And then with no time left in the first half, Barbosa would kick a 38-yard field goal for A&M to put them behind 17-6. Coming out of the half at 13:46 left in the third quarter, Keenan Hambrick would catch a 34-yard pass from Quad Brown. Extra point was good. Well, they went for two. They went for 2 and got it. That made it score 17-14. Then with 7:04 left in the third, Barbosa would kick his third field goal of the game, this time from 44 yards out, and that tied the game up at 17. Grambling would snap the ball over the punter's head with 46 seconds left in the third, resulting in a safety. That put the Bulldogs up 19-17. And then with 7:20 left in the game, Barbosa would kick a 19-yard field goal to make the score 22-17. And Grambling would have their chances when you kind of look at what happened after that score by A&M. Grambling would, they would have their chances. They would get the ball. They would get the ball and at their own 28, and they would drive to their own 44 where they faced the 4th and 15. And Miles Crawley had a nice throw to Javon Robinson at the A&M 40, but he dropped it, and they turned the ball over on downs. A&M drove the ball and down to the Grambling 36, and then they ended up punting, and Grambling got the ball starting at their own 4-yard line, and immediately Miles Crawley threw an interception to Caleb Dawson at the Grambling 20, and A&M ran the clock out there. So they had a couple chances. I know if they could have come up with that reception on that 4th and 15, they may have scored on that drive. We can't say for sure, but that was a good momentum play for them. But it sapped them when they dropped it, and A&M was able to drive. They had a call on that 3rd and 2 that I thought they should have probably ran it and picked up that first down, but ultimately they ended up getting the interception on the next possession anyway, so it didn't matter. Grambling finished with 12 first downs on the night, A&M 27. Grambling 94 yards on the ground, 26 carries, 3.6 yards per carry, no touchdowns. A&M 160 on the ground, 43 carries, 3.7 yards per carry, and no touchdowns. Grambling 169 yards passing, 12 of 29, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. A&M 228 through the air, 20 of 35, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. 263 yards of offense for Grambling, 55 plays, 4.8 yards per play. They fumbled 4 times and lost 1, so they had 3 turnovers plus snap over the punter head. So really, you can look at that as 4 turnovers. 15 penalties of 134 yards. They continue to be hamstrung by penalties. A&M 388 yards of offense, 78 plays, 5 yards per play. They had 3 fumbles and lost 2. They had 9 penalties for 87 yards. So again, a highly penalized game. Grambling had 5 punts for 42.6 yard average, and 6 punts for 39.8 yard average. Grambling finished the night 3 of 13 on 3rd downs, 1 of 2 on 4th down, 2 of 2 in the red zone. They did finish with 4 sacks. A&M 14 on 3rd down. They didn't attempt a 4th down. They were 2 of 3 in the red zone, and they had 1 sack. Individually, Miles Crawley, 12 of 27 for Grambling, 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 1 sack. Bailey was 0 for 2 for Grambling in limited action. Brown, 20 of 35 for 228 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. He was sacked 4 times. Hargrove led Grambling with 8 carries for 38 yards on the night. Bradford, 3 for 21. Eaglin, 25 carries, 123 yards for A&M, average 4.9 yards per carry. So that's his second big game in the past 2 weeks. Didn't get in the end zone this game, but he still had a strong game on the ground, especially late, picking up big chunks of yardage when they were using the clock. Jalen Johnson had 1 catch for 67 yards. Robinson, 4 for 44 for Grambling. Hambrick had 8 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown for A&M. Donovan Wright, 3 for 58. The Quadrant Welch, 4 for 40. Andrew Jones finished with 15 tackles for Grambling. He also had 1 tackle for loss, but Michael Garner led the defense with 3 tackles for loss. Their sacks went to Rudolph, Garner, Cage, and Darling. A&M was led by Marvin Smith with 7 tackles, along with Jalen Wright. He also had 7 tackles. Cedric Smith had 1.5 tackles for loss. He also had the 1 sack for Grambling. And Dawson and Wesley each had interceptions for A&M. As the Bulldogs picked up a big win. This was a win they needed. You want to close out the season strong. So, this was your last home game of the season. Definitely want to go out like that. And they did pick up a very big victory here. Grambling took another step in the wrong direction, but I still think this team, obviously this season is not going to go the way that they wanted it. But I do think they have a decent foundation to build on. So we'll see. They have 1 game left, and that's the Bayou Classic. So we'll see, how they come out and play in that game with the opportunity to just kind of close out the season on a strong mark. First Saturday game that we're going to talk about is probably the biggest story of the day. Obviously, this game was viewed by most of us as a foregone conclusion. Hell, I even talked about A&M resting guys in this game. And Valley came out and they took an early punch from FAMU, but they took it and they responded, and then they just held on to win. You know, I think it was a really solid game for Valley. It raises a lot of questions for A&M as they lose their second straight game, and their second straight upset game at that. The home winning streak is snapped. This season is basically is honestly shot. You know, I mean, actually, at this point, there's no you don't have any postseason hopes at all. So the season is over, and it kind of crashed and burned. Now the Rattlers do have 2 games left, but you know, this is like this is like a momentum crasher, and so for them, you know, there's a lot of questions, a lot of soul searching. But on the flip side, man, Valley came in this game at 0-10 and was able to pick up this victory 24-21. So salute to the Delta Devils for fighting and staying in this game and finally having some things go their way when most of the season things went the other way. Looking at the scoring summary, Valley fell behind 7-0 when both Somerset had a 19-yard run for the Rattlers. That came with 13:46 left in the game in the first quarter. Rattlers went up 7-0 with 5:44 left in the first. Jacoby Thomas would get a 2-yard run for Valley. Extra point was good. That tied the game up at 7. With 13-10 left in the second quarter. Cameron Gillis had a 45-yard field goal for the Rattlers, put them up 10-7. And then Cameron Nelson will get Valley back on the board with a 4-yard pass from Tajarian Williams. Extra point was good. Valley led 14-10 at that point. And then with 6:36 left in the second quarter, Nathan Rembert caught a 60-yard pass from Williams to put the Delta Devils up 21-10 after the extra point. That was a 7-play, 99-yard drive for Valley. It took 4:01 off the clock. Major drive for them there. And then with no time left in the second quarter, Marco Josevic had a 30-yard field goal for the Delta Devils. That kept another long drive, 10 plays, 72 yards. And that made it score 24-10 as they will go into the half. Coming out of the half, FAMU would score with 9:16 left in the third when Gillis would kick a 44-yard field goal to bring the Rattlers to within 24-13. 8:53 left in the game. Gassett would catch a 39-yard pass from Richardson. 2-point conversion was good. Rattlers trail 24-21 at that point. And like I said, Valley, they were able to kind of take advantage of situations. They would get the ball after that FAMU score, and they would drive. They would drive down to their not do much on their first drive. They punted. FAMU got the ball back at their own 39, and they fumbled. They fumbled, and Valley was there to get the ball at their own 20 and run out the clock. So Valley strong. Valley got the ball back with 5:52 left in the game, and they were able to just run the clock out. So really strong finish for Valley. FAMU. Just not the game, obviously, that you were expecting to have in a game like this. And it just leads to a lot of questions, where does this team go from here? And that's going to be something interesting to keep tab on as we move through the season toward the conclusion. Valley finished with 17 first downs, FAMU 16. Valley 90 yards on the ground, 35 carries, 2.6 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. FAMU 172 yards on the ground, 24 carries, 7.2 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Valley 251 yards passing, 19 of 28, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. FAMU 259 through the air, 18 of 24, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 341 yards for Valley on 63 plays, 5.4 yards per play. No turnovers for Valley in this game. That's huge. 6 penalties for 60 yards. FAMU 431 yards of offense, 48 plays. They averaged 9 yards per play. They had 3 fumbles and lost all 3, and they had 9 penalties for 75 yards. So they really helped Valley out a lot in this game. But Valley took advantage of those mistakes. You can't necessarily say that they just gave it to Valley. Valley had to do what they do the job too, and I thought they did that. because a lot of times Valley would fold in these kind of situations, but they kept their foot there. And even though they didn't score in the second half, they were able to hold FAMU off and still win this game. Valley had 7 points for 47-yard average, FAMU 3 for 33.3. Valley 5 of 12 on third down. They didn't attempt the fourth down. They were 3 of 3 in the red zone, and they had 2 sacks. FAMU 2 of 9 on third down. Again, that's another thing that's going to kill you. 0 for 1 on fourth down. So that's a total of 2 of 10 on conversions, and that's just not going to get it done for you. 2 of 10, 7 penalties, 9 penalties, 3 turnovers. All those things will kill you no matter who you playing, and it really bit them here. 1 of 4 in the red zone. You can add that to that, and no sacks. Just not a lot of game-changing plays for them on any side of the ball, and that's going to kill you. Tajarian Williams, 19 of 28, 251 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks. Daniel Richardson, 18 of 24, 259 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and 2 sacks. Tajarian Williams had 11 carries for 31 yards for Valley. Caden Betts, 6 for 30. Thomas, 11 for 23 and a touchdown. Somerset led FAMU with 4 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. Franklin, 6 for 77. Dean, 9 for 44. Rembert has 7 catches for 130 yards for Valley and 1 touchdown. Davis, 4 for 41. Jassett, 3 for 83 for FAMU and a touchdown. Lawrence, 2 for 52. Bell, 2 for 49. Jordan Montgomery, Bruce Mitchell, Eric Campbell, DeAndre Clark, they each had 5 tackles apiece for the Delta Devils. Brown had 2 tackles for loss, and he also had a sack, along with Donovan Parham had a sack. FAMU was led in tackles by Deco Wilson and Jerome Nichols, both with 8. Nichols, Bowler, Fox, who played at Valley last year, and Smith each had 1 tackle for loss apiece, no sacks, no interceptions, no fumbles. So, like I said, this was as clean of a game as you can play if you Valley. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had some hiccups, but this was as clean of a game as you can play for them. And I salute Coach Wade and his guys for fighting and staying in it, because it's easy to throw those jabs at Valley like we all do, but they just kept themselves in this game, and they did something that other teams who have better records than them could not do, and that's go to brag and win. So I salute Valley for this, and I want to see if they can close out the season with a winning streak when they play Alabama A&M on Saturday. So we'll keep an eye out on that game, and we'll definitely talk about that game Wednesday on our Week 13 preview. Next up is Texas Southern and Bethune-Cookman. This was a game I thought the Wildcats had a really good chance of winning this game, primarily because I didn't think TSU offensively had been doing a lot, and I thought Bethune would be able to feed off the energy from last week, and that would help them. But again, this was another long road trip for the Wildcats, back-to-back trip to Louisiana and Texas, and they had another close game. This time they lost it 17-14. They led this game 7-0 early when Malik Huggins caught a 62-yard pass from Cam Ransom. That put the Wildcats up 7-0. Third quarter, after a 7-0 halftime score, third quarter, Ethan Renfro will get a 5-yard run for TSU to tie the game up at 7. That kept the 11-play, 84-yard drive. They took 5:43 off the clock. Avalar will get a 27-yard field goal for Texas Southern with 2:27 left in the third, and that will make the score 10-7. Renfro will get his second touchdown of the game, this time from 28 yards out, and that will make the score 17-7. And then Jenkins will catch a 6-yard pass from Ransom with 6:04 left in the game, and that would make the score 17-14. I think Bethune-Cookman did have a touchdown call back early that maybe could have put them up 14-0. That could have been, a situation that might have changed some things, but you got to kind of go with what happens. After Bethune cut the lead to 17-14, FAMU would get the ball at their own. They would get the ball at their own 15-yard line, and then they would drive to their own 43 and punt. Bethune would get the ball back with 2:32, and they would drive down to the TSU 37, where they would miss a field goal, and that would honestly have tied the game up. But TSU would get the ball back with 4 seconds left and take a knee and seal his win. So they had their chance to send this game to another overtime. This would have been their second overtime in 2 weeks, but they came up short on the field goal, and TSU escapes. 21 first downs for both teams, 115 yards on the ground for Bethune-Cookman, 34 carries, 3.4 yards per carry, no touchdowns. 147 yards on the ground for TSU, 39 carries, 3.8 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. 219 yards of passing offense for the Wildcats, 22 of 34. No 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. 170 yards passing for TSU, 13 of 26. No touchdowns, 1 interception. 334 yards of offense for the Wildcats, 68 plays, 4.9 yards per play. They had 1 fumble, but they didn't lose it. They had 8 penalties for 135 yards, 317 yards of offense for Texas Southern, 65 plays, 4.9 yards per play. They had no fumbles at all, and they had 6 penalties for 60 yards. Bethune punted 7 times for a 42.4 yard average. TSU 5 for 38.2. Wildcats 5 of 14 on 3rd down, 1 for 1 on 4th down, 1 or 2 in the red zone, and they had 1 sack. TSU 8 of 15 on 3rd down. They didn't attempt a 4th down. They were 2 for 2 in the red zone, and they had 3 sacks. Individual Ransom, 22 of 34, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception, 3 sacks for Bethune-Cookman. Jace Wilson, 13 of 26, 170 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked once. Dennis Palmer had 19 carries for 87 yards for the Wildcats. Dees had 2 for 22. Renfro, 22 carries, 129 yards for TSU and 2 touchdowns. Big game for him, as he got the bulk of the carries in this game, and he made the most of it. Averaged 5.9 yards per carry in this game. Huggins, 4 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown for the Wildcats. Nance, 8 for 74. Jaron Johnson, 4 for 60 for TSU. Trenton Leary, 4 for 55. Kevin Washington Jr. and Josh Thornhill led the Wildcats with 7 tackles apiece. Greaves, Washington, Brown, and St. Sparrow Jr. each had 1 tackle for loss apiece. Greaves had a sack. Interception was by Lassiter. TSU was led by Umar Yarrow and Javis Williams, each with 10 tackles apiece. Yarrow had 2 tackles for loss. Wright, Cox, and Smith each had sacks. And so this was, like I said, this was a game that came down to the end. Bethune-Cookman had a chance, tie it up, and take it to, a consecutive overtime game in back-to-back weeks. But they came up short on the field goal, and TSU was able to escape with a big win. They needed it. I think they need, any kind of positivity and motivation and success that they can get, especially late in the season. But Bethune-Cookman continues to be a team that's gonna be a tough team to knock out. I think they continue to fight, they continue to claw, and they're finding some pieces on this team that are gonna be better in the upcoming season. So I'm excited to see what Bethune-Cookman, where they go from here. And I'm also interested to see where TSU goes. Both teams have a chance to finish their season strong. And so we'll see if they can do that. That takes us to our 4th game of the day, and that's Prairie View and Alcorn. This was a game I thought could go either way. I really had a tough time picking a winner in this game, but Alcorn jumped up on PV early, 13-0, and they were able to basically control this game. Prairie View never really was in this game. When you look at it, they just never really were able to get a lot going in this game. Alcorn did what they needed to do. At that point in the day, it looked like they would be able to kind of keep this West Division race going, if they won this game. But ultimately, with Southern winning, it didn't matter what they did. But I still think it's a big win for them on the road. You get another win. You got a chance to close out the season strong again. Prairie View, their winning streak was snapped here And this was probably one of the games that they didn't look as good as they had in recent weeks. So, I think it was just kind of two different teams playing two different ways, and Alcorn came out on top. Jacorian Sewell will get the Braves on the board first with 12:25 left in the first quarter with a 58-yard run. That would, at the extra point, they made the score 7-0. 9:56 left in the first quarter. Kiani, a 50-yard field goal. That came on a short field. That was a 4-play, 3-yard drive that made the score 10-0. Kiani would get another field goal in the first quarter from 38 yards out. That made the score 13-10. That came off another short field. Another 3-yard drive that took 6 plays. They ended up kicking a field goal and went up 13-0. Kobe Cavill will get the Panthers on the board with a 75-yard punt return to make the score 13-7. Caleb Anderson would catch a 16-yard pass from Trey Lawrence. Conversion no good. Alcorn led 19-7. That was with 8:38 left in the first half, and that will be our halftime score. Third quarter, 6:48 left in the third. Garcia Rodriguez will get a 41-yard field goal for the Panthers, and that'll make the score 19-10. And then Garcia Rodriguez will get another field goal with 1:33 left in the third quarter, and that'll make the score 19-13. That came from 20 yards out. And then Truck Griffin will get a 22-yard run for Alcorn to seal the game up with 1:52 left in the fourth to put the Braves with 26-13. And that will be how this one ended. Alcorn 13 first downs, PV 20, 184 yards on the ground for the Braves, 39 carries, 4.7 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Prairie View 113 yards on the ground, 34 carries, 3.3 yards per carry, and no touchdowns. Alcorn 64 yards passing, 8 of 20 with 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown. 205 through the air for the Panthers. 21 of 50, no touchdowns, 1 interception. 248 yards of offense for Alcorn, 59 plays, 4.2 yards per play, no fumbles. They had 10 penalties for 96 yards. Prairie View 318 yards of offense, 84 plays, 3.8 yards per play, and they had 1 fumble and lost it. They also had 7 penalties for 80 yards. Alcorn punted 6 times for a 50-yard average. Prairie View 7 times for a 41.1 yard average. Braves 4 of 14 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down, 2 of 2 in the red zone. They had 6 sacks. So they really were able to make all Prairie View's offense very uncomfortable with that pass rush. 4 of 19 for the Panthers on third down, 2 of 4 on fourth down, 1 for 2 in the red zone, and they had 2 sacks. Individually, Vaughn 5 of 11 for 49 yards, no touchdown, no interception, 2 sacks. Lawrence 3 of 9 for 15 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, no sacks. Peters came in for PV. He was 11 of 25 for 118 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions, 1 sack. Johnson 10 of 24, 87 yards, no touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 5 times. Heron was 0 for 1. Griffin led the Braves with 12 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. Sewell 10 for 57 and a touchdown. McDowell led Prairie View with 10 carries for 42 yards. Bingman 7 for 37. Peter 7 for 27. Johnson 7 for 8. Anderson led Alcorn with 1 catch for 16 yards and a touchdown. Jones led the team with 3 receptions for 15 yards. Burns led Prairie View with 6 catches for 52 yards. Ratliff 3 for 52. John 3 for 46. Edwards led Alcorn with 11 tackles. Bailey 3 tackles for loss to lead the team and 2.5 sacks. Big game for him as he was really disruptive in this game. And McKelton had the interception for the Braves. Warren Schenkel returned from being banged up for a while. He had 8 tackles to lead the team. Coleman and Farrell each had 1.5 tackles for loss. Farrell and Gefford each had sacks for the Panthers. Interceptions went to Davis and Robinson. So, this was ultimately a standings game. I know coming into this game, if Alcorn won and Southern lost, they would still be in the hunt and have a chance at the division. But with Southern winning, that took that away from them. But this, they have a chance to finish second, which is still strong, especially when you consider how this team started off the season, and Prairie View to be, to still be finishing it, opportunity to finish in the top part of the division. Um, it's still a good thing considering how their season started off. Now they do need to win. They can't finish tied with TSU because TSU beat them. So if they finish tied with the Tigers, then they would finish below them. So they still need to, just to finish. Finishing third and finishing 6-6 is a positive thing when your season was basically on the brink of disaster early because you just started off so slow. So they were able to put together some wins and kind of make the season look a little bit better. But it kind of fell short this weekend. The next game we have is our first game that wrapped up a division, and this was Southern defeating Pine Bluff by a score of 31-9. Another slow start for Southern offensively. They had a punt and an interception early in the first quarter, but Southern defense played an extremely good game against Pine Bluff in this game. Two times Pine Bluff drove the ball into the red zone. Southern held in the field goals. Southern was able to score 2 touchdowns in the second quarter and take control of this game. Third quarter, they kind of pulled away, and then they sealed it with a nice big man scoop and score for Southern's first defensive touchdown of the season. Now, I will be the first to say I've been extremely critical of Southern and the coaching staff. And if you want to go back and look at that video I made after Nicholls State, I don't hide from it. I was extremely disappointed and upset after the game. But this team has stayed the course all season. Regardless of what any of us outside the facility say or think, these guys, they found a way week in and week out to continue to fight and put things together. And they won games that it looked like they shouldn't have won. But when you're able to do that, things will come through for you. And this was probably this was the first game that I can really say I thought Southern played as complete of a game as they could play as a team this season outside of Savannah State. So, this was when they needed it. They needed this game. You couldn't allow, a team like Pine Bluff to kind of hang around because their offense is capable of moving the ball and they're capable of putting points up if you give them the confidence. But Southern was able to do what they've been doing in recent weeks, and that's play opportunistic, bend but don't break defense and run the ball. Jalen Woods had a strong game. He had a kind of rocky start, but he got himself right. It was the first start, redshirt freshman, first start, senior night, division on the line. That's a lot of pressure for a young guy. And he may have been pressing a little bit early, but I think he sealed the deal and handled himself extremely well. And this is what this was what they needed to win this game and get the division wrapped up and not have to go into the Bayou Classic needing this win. For Pine Bluff, I feel like this team they just can't take positive steps for long. They had a stretch where their offense was playing really well. Then I think teams kind of started to figure out some things, and their success just didn't stack up after that. And so they still putting up numbers, but it's not anything that's gonna help you win. So I think again, I think they had a pretty solid season. I at the beginning of the season, I didn't even know if they could win 3 games. So they have been playing better. I think they just don't have the depth. I know they're real thin at linebacker. I think they're thin in the secondary, and they're just not big on the D line. So the defense is gonna always be at a disadvantage. And the offense can throw the ball around, but they can't protect the quarterback. So if the quarterback gets under pressure, which tends to happen in these games, the offense is just not going to be where it needs to be. But like I said, the Golden Lions scored the first 6 points of this game on 2 field goals by Trey Glimpf, one for 35 yards, one from 22 yards. So with 2:40 left in the first, the Golden Lions was up 6-0, and it looked like this may be a repeat of the Bethune-Cookman game, but Southern had a good drive coming out of that Pine Bluff score, and they drove 12 plays and 75 yards and took 5:29 off the clock and got a Kendrick Grimes 3-yard touchdown with 12:11 left in the second quarter. Southern led 7-6 at that point. Kobe Dillon will get the Jags on the board again with his first touchdown of the season from 8 yards out. That made the score 14-6. They had the opportunity to score right before the half, but they ran out of time, and so they went into the half up 14-6. Came out in the second half with a 71-yard pass from Woods to Jefferson to make the score 21-6. 9:26 left in the third. Josh Griffin kicks a 32-yard field goal for Southern. That was a 24-6 lead at that point. And then after a crazy play that covered 85 yards for the Golden Lions, they got down to the Southern 7 and had to kick a field goal from 25 yards out. They made the score 24-9. With 1:25 left in the game, Willie Miles had a 7-yard fumble recovery, scoop and score for Southern, and wrapped up the game for the Jaguars. Pine Bluff 18 first down, Southern 21, 95 yards rushing for the Golden Lions, 34 carries, 2.8 yards per carry, no touchdowns. 216 yards rushing for Southern, 43 carries, 5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. 224 yards passing for Pine Bluff, 17-31, no touchdowns, no interceptions. 202 yards passing for Southern, 14-22, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. 319 yards for the Golden Lions, 65 plays, 4.9 yards per play. They fumbled 4 times and lost 2. They had 1 penalty for 5 yards. Southern 418 yards of offense, 65 plays, 6.4 yards per play. They fumbled once but didn't lose it. They had 6 penalties for 53 yards. Pine Bluff punted 3 times for a 38.3-yard average. Southern 3 punts for a 44.7-yard average. Pine Bluff was 7 of 15 on third downs, 0 for 1 on fourth down. They were 3 of 3 in the red zone. They had 1 sack. Southern 6 of 11 on third down. No fourth down attempts, 3 of 5 in the red zone, and they had 3 sacks. Higgins finished the night 14-27, 216 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions, 2 sacks. Stevenson 3 of 4 for 8 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions, 1 sack. Woods 14-22 for Southern, 202 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 1 sack. Curry led the Golden Lions with 17 carries for 85 yards. Russell 12 for 66 for Southern. Rhymes 13 for 65 and a touchdown. Dillon 14 for 62 and a touchdown. Gibson had 10 catches for 85 yards for Pine Bluff. For anybody else, that's a great game. For the guy who leads the league and nation in yardage, it wasn't a bad game. But Southern really kept him bottled up. When you look at it, his longest reception was 20 yards, and I think he may have had 1 or 2 other catches that were more than 10 yards. Everything else was 6-7 yards or less. So he got a lot of targets and he got a lot of catches, but he never really made a huge impact on the game. And if you're Southern, then that's what you're looking for. B.J. Curry had that 1 catch for 85 yards. Jefferson had 1 catch for 71 yards and a touchdown for Southern. Minor Jr., 2 for 36. Brown, 3 for 28. Fuller, 3 for 26. Whitfield, 2 for 26. Jaden Kelly had 15 tackles for the Golden Lions. And this defense only had 2 tackles for loss. So not a lot of opportunities to really make Southern, put Southern behind the chains. And when you play a team like that and you don't put them in long down and distances, it makes it tough. They had 1 sack. Oshalake had the sack. He also had a tackle for loss. And Riley had a tackle for loss. Interception went to Miller. Southern was led by Johnson and Brister, each with 5 tackles apiece. Miles and Givens each had 2 tackles for loss apiece. Miles, Cotton, and Joseph each had a sack. And so, like I said, this was a game Southern needed. They needed a game that did not come down to the final play. They needed a game that did not come to overtime. And they just needed to have something go their way. And this was that game. And the team they're gonna face in the SWAC championship is Jackson State, and they played a game that kind of not really a surprise. I figured this was going to be a game that was close and physical, 16-10 against Bama State. Tigers were able to withstand, not a great night and get the win. And when you're 7-0, when you're looking to go 7-0 in conference and looking to wrap up a 8-0 conference schedule, which can happen if they win next week, you're gonna have these kind of games where you don't necessarily play your best on one side of the ball, but the other side is gonna help carry the load. And I'm not really gonna speak too much on what happened after the game. Like I said, I don't like that kind of stuff, regardless of who it is, and because you run the risk of losing guys, and your season ain't over. So I'm not really gonna speak on that too much. I'm mainly looking at it from the game perspective, but JSU was able to get the win that they needed. Like I said, it wasn't pretty, but they got the win. Bama State season is now, it's over in terms of conference. They had a chance, but they lost their last two games, which really put them in a bad spot and knocked them out the race. Jackson State wins the East, and they're 7-0 with an opportunity to finish the season perfect in conference. So we'll see how that turns out. Brandon Gilliam got the Hornets on the board with 3:30 left in the first quarter with a 32-yard field goal. Jamil Gardner Jr. caught a 24-yard pass from Morgan to put the Tigers on the board with 1:44 left in the second quarter. Extra point was good. That made the score 7-3. Janalen Dupree will get JSU back on the board with a 44-yard pass from Morgan. Extra point good, 14-3. The Hornets will get on the board with 6:04 left in the third when Daquan Kinsey will get a 46-yard run. Extra point good. And JSU would pin Bama State back in their own end late in the game, and they would end up getting a safety as they sacked Key and in the end zone and got a safety. JSU will get the ball back with 1:57 on the clock and run the clock out. So not a pretty end to this game for Bama State, and probably, if you want to look at it that way, probably one of the first games where they just didn't look great in the passing game, and JSU had a lot to do with that. And so they just could not really get anything going on. And both defenses are very good, so it was tough for anybody to really get anything going consistently. But JSU finished with 12 first downs, Bama State 11. JSU only 74 yards on the ground, 44 carries, 1.7 yards per carry. So I always say if they get 150, they win. They were able to win this game with half of that yardage. So, they just were able to do what they needed to do on both sides of the ball and get this win. Like I said, 44 carries, 1.7 yards per carry, no touchdowns, 184 yards on the ground for the Hornets, 38 carries, 4.8 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. 120 yards through the air for JSU, 8 of 13, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Only 4 yards passing for Bama State, 3 of 9, no touchdowns, 1 interception. 194 yards of offense for JSU, 57 plays, 3.4 yards per play. They fumbled 4 times and lost 1. They had 8 penalties for 85 yards. 188 yards for the Hornets, 47 plays, 4 yards per play. They fumbled twice and lost 1. So both teams had 2 turnovers, 5 penalties for 35 yards for the Hornets. Tigers punted 7 times for 44.1 yard average. Hornets 8 for 37.4. JSU were 3 of 12 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down. They were 1 on 1 in the red zone, and they had 3 sacks. Bama State 2 of 11 on third down, no fourth down attempts, 1 on 1 in the red zone, and they had 6 sacks. So, like I said, both defenses really did what they are known for, and that made it tough for both offenses. Morgan 8 of 13, 120 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 6 times. Key 3 for 9. Full yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times. Mulligan, 22 carries, 57 yards for JSU. Kinsey, 13 for 144 and a touchdown for the Hornets. Average 11.1 yards per carry. Great game for him. Dupree, 2 catches, 75 yards and a touchdown for Jackson State. Gardner, 2 for 28 and a touchdown. Jones had 1 catch for 10 yards for the Hornets. And then they had 2 passes that lost a combined -6 yards, and that put them at 4 yards passing. Robert McDaniel had 14 tackles on the night. He also had 3 tackles for loss to lead the defense. And he also had a sack along with Phillip Webb and Ashton Taylor. Interception went to Wiggins. Bama State was led by DeMarcus Cunningham with 10 tackles. He also had 3.5 tackles for loss and 1.5 sacks, along with Traquan Thomas, who also had 1.5 tackles for loss. Interception went to Tukes. And so JSU, they picked up a hard-fought victory, and they won the East Division. So you can't ask for much more than that if you're Jackson State to wrap this division up before you go to play Alcorn. And now you can just play free and not think about that. So they will be, regardless of what happens next week, they will be hosting the SWAC championship, because I think the tiebreaker is overall record or whatever. So they should come out ahead of that. They will come out ahead of that regardless of what happens, and they'll host the SWAC championship game. Looking at the standings, Jackson State is 7-0 in conference, 9-2 overall. They won 7 games in a row. Bama State 4-3, 5-5 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. FAMU 3-3, 5-5 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. Alabama A&M 3-3, 5-5 overall. They've won 2 in a row. Bethune-Cookman 2-5, 2-9 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. Valley 1-6 and 1-10 overall. They won 1. Southern 6-1 in conference, 7-4 overall. They won 3 in a row. That's their first 3-game winning streak. Alcorn 5-2, 6-5 overall. They won 2. They have a chance to finish at 7-5, which is a strong finish for the way they started. Prairie View 3-4, 5-6 overall. They've lost 1. TSU 3-4, 4-6 overall. They won 1. And Grambling 2-5, 5-6 overall. They've lost 1. Pine Bluff 2-5, 3-8 overall, and they've lost 3 in a row. Looking at the schedule for Week 13 before we get up out of here, let's pull this up. Alabama A&M is at Valley. That's a 12 p.m. kickoff. That game is on HBCU Go. Prairie View is at Alabama State. That's a 2 o'clock kick. Jackson at Alcorn. That's also a 2 o'clock kick. And Texas Southern at Pine Bluff, also 2 o'clock. And then the Florida Classic, Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman in Orlando. That's a 2:30 kick. So those are the 5 games that are on the schedule for this upcoming week. And we will be back on Wednesday to preview these games. Thursday is Swag Smoke live, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then we will have our Week 13 recap on that Sunday. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the Swag, Sewell, signing out. And I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.